Let me introduce first of all, we have with us Ms. Annette. She is the Deputy Director with the Office of Economic Development in Düsseldorf, Germany. So, we will start with the first question. So, could you share a bit about your journey and what led you to your current role as the Deputy Director of Economic Development for the city of Düsseldorf?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I really very much look forward to discussing German and Indian business ties with you and how we can strengthen them further. In terms of my background, I actually do have like a industry background. I used to work in publishing quite a long time for German publishing houses and also for Oxford University Press. And that basically led me into like representing an international company in Germany on the market. And after some consideration, I decided to join public service and I started to work as a commercial officer for UK Trade and Development back then at the British Consulate in Düsseldorf. And from there, I then decided to join the city and to work for the international business service unit of the city of Düsseldorf. So my experience is basically in exporting myself and also in basically supporting companies from abroad in setting up shop in Germany or in entering the German market. And I was actually fairly blessed because one of the first major projects that I got involved with was the opening of Tata Consultancy Services in Düsseldorf. They decided to start a big delivery center in Düsseldorf in 2008. And that was my first chance and opportunity to get in touch with Indian companies and to help them on the ground in Düsseldorf. So from 2008 onwards, I have continuously supported Indian companies in Germany.
Great to know. I could see that you are quite active as far as India-Germany business relationship is concerned. You are quite active. I could see many of the delegation went from India. You participated, you contributed. Not only contributed, you were also instrumental in all those activities, and you led from the front. Mm-hmm. So good to know. And one more thing we would like to know, those who will be watching this podcast, can you share a brief about the primary responsibility of the Office of Economic Development Düsseldorf? What they are into, what kind of typically what a day looks like or what a week looks like?
Exactly. So the Office of Economic Development is actually, because basically what pays for us is the trade tax that companies pay into the city budget. And as a team, we are a rather small economic development office in comparison to the size of the city. We are around about 50 people, and we work in more or less 4 different teams. One team is the administration team and the marketing team, very much a central function, working for all the teams, of course. Then there is the international business service, the team that I primarily lead. And we look after international companies in Düsseldorf. So Düsseldorf is a very international location with huge business communities from Asia specifically. So we've got like a Japan desk, China Competence Center, India Competence Center, Korea desk, and also teams looking after European and EMEA accounts. Then there's also a team that is developing the innovation initiatives of the city. So looking after like clusters and specific innovation networks that we are initiating, and also looking after the startup initiative. We've got a startup unit in Düsseldorf with a growing startup ecosystem, which is also part of our role. And then there is another very important unit, and that's the one looking after the development of office space, warehouse space, industrial space for manufacturing. In a city that is densely populated as Düsseldorf, there is always a bit of a competition between housing and trade and industry. And that's something that my colleagues from this department are navigating. And having such a big team gives us the opportunity that we can support companies in very different manners during their life circle in Düsseldorf. So for instance, a company coming from abroad might primarily be interested in finding office space or warehouse space. So we can do this with our colleagues from the real estate department. And if they have not yet had them or with potential clients and partners, we can do that with the help and support of in the innovation unit, for instance. So therefore, I think this is a very good setup and we are fairly efficient in the way we work.
Great to know. One more thing I was noticing. Dusseldorf has, the largest Japanese community. Amongst all the
Mm-hmm.
European countries. So largest Japanese community they are at Dusseldorf particularly. And one more thing I have noticed that you have a tradition of innovation. The legacy of
Mm-hmm.
innovation, I would say. So many of the
Mm-hmm.
German companies, and particularly based out at Dusseldorf, I'm not only singling out Dusseldorf, but there are other cities also like Frankfurt.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see that there is a tradition of innovation. Whatever they do and the
Mm-hmm.
kind of research, product and your new product and
Mm-hmm.
new project. Innovation, product and process
Mm-hmm.
innovation. I am referring to basically. So what is so different about Dusseldorf and why there is such a legacy of innovation I could see, which I could see particularly in the financial,
Mm-hmm.
telecommunication market, even into the fashion industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you
Mm-hmm.
share, throw a light on this, some ideas on this?
Mm-hmm.
This will be quite
So it's
interesting.
actually two topics that I'm going to touch upon. One, the first is the history of and the DNA of being an innovative location, and the second one is why there is such a huge community from Japan. So when it comes to innovation, Düsseldorf is just at the center of the industrial heartland in Germany. NRW, the federal state, which is the biggest federal state, and Düsseldorf is the state capital. As a city, it is rather small. We have just like 660,000 inhabitants. So from Indian perspective, this is a village, very much reflected in the name Düsseldorf. Dorf means village. But it's right in the center of this huge federal state with various large industry sectors surrounding and also active in Düsseldorf. So that's the one thing, huge industrial background and B2B potential in the region. Second factor is Düsseldorf is right in the center of one of the most dense university clusters in Europe. Because you always talk about maybe Cambridge and Oxford in England, and okay, these are renowned excellence universities, but in NRW, we've got the RWTH, RWTH, university in Aachen, very good technical university, a lot of students from India as well, and Technical University of Dortmund, and in between, just in the middle, is Düsseldorf. So in terms of technical expertise, we can draw from universities of excellence in the whole region, and there are some, depending on how you count it, between 500,000 and 750,000 students in the region. So that's a huge strength. As you asked about Japan and the Japanese business community, they basically came to Düsseldorf back in the 50s during the time of the recovery after the Second World War. Okay. And they were basically starting with their big trading houses and dealing with the big industrial giants from the Rhine-Ruhr area. But since then, they have really grown, and now we are very proud that, the Japanese companies, they are some of the leaders in innovation in our region as well. So they're not just trading and maybe manufacturing, but they also have R&D centers in Düsseldorf, which is quite important for us as a location.
Any particular industry you can refer about where you do see a lot of potential as far as Dusseldorf and the Germany is concerned, where you would like to take, and if you look at from next 5 to 10 years, down the line and the perspective. So which are the industries on which you would like to focus more upon? And that too in the background of what is happening geopolitically. You must be aware of the kind of disruptions which have been created. So which are the industries you would like to focus upon? Dusseldorf would like to focus upon, or any particular industry you might be focusing upon?
With automotive, aerospace manufacturing, our region is the go-to region basically in Germany and in Europe. And having mentioned these sectors, there is a little shift from automotive to defense going on in our region. One of the remarkable examples is, of course, Rheinmetall. one of the strongest defense companies in Germany, is headquartered in Düsseldorf, also with their technological R&D center in Düsseldorf. And they are just transforming one of their manufacturing sites nearby from an automotive supply site to a satellite manufacturing site, and they're building a satellite cluster there. So you can see there is also some shift towards defense at the moment.
Very good.
Anything with regards to IT, digital, and semiconductors is also high in demand in Germany. So if you've got solutions in that field, you should also reach out and see whether there's some opportunities and partners you can link up with. And then talking about India, pharmaceuticals and biotech is so strong in India, also a strength in our area. And therefore, that's also big opportunities in this field. And then anything with regards to services and engineering, the big digital consultancy companies from India, TCS, Tech Mahindra, Infosys, Wipro, they all have huge offices in Düsseldorf and operate from Düsseldorf with the industrial giants in our region in various sectors.
So suppose if any Indian company, they are willing to open up their base or center in Düsseldorf, I mean, what are the potential advantages they might have? Why any Indian company should go and they should set up their operations and office in Düsseldorf? If you can throw some light, that will also be quite useful for the industry in India. I mean, those who are looking to expand into Europe, expand into other part of the world. So why they should go, and what kind of incentive, advantage, or anything if they can expect?
Yeah. So first of all, if a company is thinking of going abroad, going to Germany, going to Europe, you always have to do your homework. There will always be people talking to you and selling one or the other location. And I think the market looks very different for each company because it very much depends on whom you're dealing with. So if I were an Indian company and I were interested in entering the German market, I would spend some time on finding out where in Germany, where in Europe, the companies I intend to deal with are located. And when you do this kind of homework, you usually come to the conclusion that a lot of the companies are either located in our region or can easily be accessed from Düsseldorf via the airport, via the station, and so on, because Düsseldorf is very well connected. So therefore, that's one of the reasons why the Japanese companies, the Chinese companies, and so on have turned Düsseldorf into one of their preferred locations in Germany. It is a very convenient location for servicing the whole of Europe. So the Japanese companies, for instance, they often have their headquarters in Düsseldorf, manufacturing sites all over Europe, often also in Eastern Europe because it's a little cheaper there, or more cost effective, to put it like that. But when it comes to quality of living, international infrastructure, schools, service providers who can deal with you in your mother tongue and so on, that's all available in Düsseldorf. So having said that, Germany is a complicated country, very much like India. We have like a federal structure. So there is, of course, our national capital, Berlin. But Berlin is a tech center and a startup center. We all know that. But around of Berlin, there is not that much industry. So if you're having a B2B business model, for instance, Berlin, not at all the right place, then it has to be somewhere in Western Germany. And then Düsseldorf is one of the really preferred and very efficient locations for that. Is there is a very good infrastructure supporting companies from India in Düsseldorf in particular. There's on the one hand the only German office of the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce. They have an office in Düsseldorf. They have various offices in India. So if you want to gain some initial information about Germany, German business culture, meet up with companies that are engaged within Indo-German trade. There is offices in India, but also in Düsseldorf. That is a unique situation in Düsseldorf, actually. Then we've got, and that was just founded basically at the beginning of the year, a new institution which is called the India Competence Center. And that's like a joint venture project of the city of Düsseldorf, the trade fair of Düsseldorf, and the local chamber of Düsseldorf. So what we are doing basically is we are bundling our expertise. So the local chamber of Düsseldorf is representing the companies, the industry. So they are basically providing the network one can sell into and a lot of events. But they are also the ones advising German companies who are interested in entering the Indian market. So therefore, they are a really good platform. The Messe Düsseldorf is very active in India as well, with offices in Mumbai and Delhi, and a lot of trade shows they are running in India. So for us as a city, it's a little bit like our ambassadors in India. So whenever we plan to travel to India to do something there, we can do this with the help of the Messe Düsseldorf. But Messe Düsseldorf also provides Indian companies a lot of great platforms to reach out to clients in Germany, be it on trade shows in India or on the trade shows in Düsseldorf. So that's something that we bring into this joint venture. And then as a city, we are the ones then supporting companies from India coming to Düsseldorf with finding office space, linking up with the ecosystem, getting advice on how to formate a legal entity, and so on and so on and so on. And also with access to whatever subsidies or supports might be available. But I actually have to say subsidies and grants is not necessarily the wisest element for a location ranking process, because in Europe we have a system in which locations like Düsseldorf, for instance, that are working well, you don't necessarily get a grant for setting up shop there. You'll get a grant for setting up shop somewhere more remotely, which will then basically pay for the little more hassle you have to do for traveling and reaching out to clients and so on. So therefore, it's not necessarily grants and subsidies that we can put on the table when it comes to discussing the opportunities in Düsseldorf. It's more the services we provide and the market opportunities you can tap into and the infrastructure that Düsseldorf offers to international companies.
One more thing, I mean, Düsseldorf, as you rightly mentioned, that it is also known for trade fairs and exhibitions. Globally, it's a big name as far as trade fairs and exhibitions. Some of, as you rightly said, some of the major exhibitions are Düsseldorf Messe, which is and apart from that, Medica, then Drupa, and K-Fair. So Medica is I believe, is the largest medical technology fair, which normally, so what would be the frequency? Is it a yearly affair or it happens?
Medica is a yearly affair, and then others are every second year or every 3 years. It depends on the trade show. Drupa is not a yearly show. It's a very big show, and these machines are huge that they have to install into the exhibition on the exhibition side. K, for instance, is taking place next month. And K is also a really, really interesting show because there is a lot of, green technologies that are being implemented into, the K, the plastics sector. And therefore, this is one that we really very much look forward to as Office of Economic Development, because what we do is we also visit the shows and we speak to some of the exhibitors from abroad about their strategies for the German market and whether Düsseldorf as a location can play a role in their entering Europe and reaching out to German or European clients.
And I'm sure it also aligns well with the vision of the city, Düsseldorf. So this K, which is which focuses upon plastic and rubber and all those kind of materials. So thank you very much for, sharing insights on your trade fair and the kind of activity Düsseldorf is doing, and you being the deputy director at Düsseldorf. Share your understanding about the GCCs. I'm talking about India and the recent phenomenon last few years or so, what is happening. So yes, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much for that question, because I think this is really, really interesting because we can see a real shift here. When I started in my job at the Office of Economic Development, we usually spoke about India as a cheap outsourcing market. So you would consider, you would single out a few specific, software programming topics, stuff like that. You would pass this on to a unit in India and have the service from there. That was the way we looked at India at that time. And, when I was dealing with companies from India, and I'm not quoting any names, but one of the biggest issues was with our labor office. Because there was always this impression, that Indian people are taking away the jobs from German people. That was a little bit the mindset at the time. And it was not the mindset that these are, innovation partners that help German companies to innovate.
And the kind of value
But this,
addition,
I think,
right, and the kind of value addition it can do to a German corporation.
yeah, it was just a cost-saving thing, yeah?
True.
But now what we can see is a completely different image. Now what's happening is that, it's not a few tasks that are being, transferred and served from India. It's actually innovation units that are working from India, because there is a lot of well-trained, skilled young people from Indian IT and technical colleges available. And they are working from India, and they are the ones that are helping in German companies to innovate more quickly and more agile than they could be doing it from within Germany alone or from within a European network. So I think this is something that is rapidly growing. I can see this with the companies from Düsseldorf alone. I mean, if I look at, for instance, Henkel, they have opened their capacity center in Bangalore like 3 years ago. So this is, and since then I've seen more and more Düsseldorf-based companies opening such centers. So I can really see that this is a major trend. But what I find most important is that, there has to be a close link between what's happening in India and what's happening in Germany on the ground. And sometimes it's even like trilateral projects. One of the ones that I really, really like in Düsseldorf is a project that is run by Rakuten Symphony from Japan,
right,
with Tech Mahindra from India, and 1&1 from Germany. And they have a innovation unit in Tokyo, a small one, a huge one in Bangalore, and also from the point of view of Germany, a sizable one in Düsseldorf. The biggest one, of course, is the one in Bangalore. And this is, I think, very encouraging to see how 3 nations can join forces via a lot of that innovation part. Programming is being done in Bangalore, of course, but it's 3 different innovation cultures that are bringing their best together in one project that can be at the forefront of a new innovation. So I think this is a good example, and I think this is rapidly growing.
Great. I would also about to ask you, I could see from your, profile, LinkedIn profile, that few days back a delegation from Karnataka, they went to Düsseldorf, you hosted them, and there was some activity which was focused upon skilled labor cooperation. Can you throw some light on that? Then again we will switch on to, move on to GCCs, the Global Capability Centers. So first I would like to know the kind of collaborative efforts you have done or you have created with the state of Karnataka, particularly on skilled labor cooperation. So that is sounding very interesting as far as India is concerned, because the kind of population we have and the kind of demographic mix we have. Around 60% of our population is into the working age group, right? And below 30 years of age, around 30 years of age. So for India, skilling and upskilling is one of the major objective at this point in time. And if India has to grow, India has to match with the global, global peers. So in that condition, India has to focus upon the skill development and skilling of the people. So can you share some light on this Karnataka delegation which went to Düsseldorf recently?
There was one that came this year, but our cooperation with Karnataka goes back to like 2022, 2023. This is when we had the first visits, vice versa, also at ministerial level. And we decided to join forces in a cooperation agreement called the Karnataka-Düsseldorf NRW Innovation Corridor. And the general objective is to promote cooperation in our startup ecosystems in the field of green tech, industrial IoT, and biotech. And then, as an additional topic, we also included cooperation in the field of skilled migration, skilled labor. And earlier this year, colleagues from Karnataka reached out to us with exactly this topic, because the GTTC in Karnataka, Global Tools Technology Center, is interested in finding cooperation partners in Germany for basically their students. They are training their students in basic technological vocational training skills, engineering skills. And they were interested in finding partners in Germany, institutional partners like chambers of commerce, chambers of handicrafts and trade, but also companies who are interested in hiring vocational trainees from India. And what we facilitated were initial talks between both institutions, but also companies interested. And at the moment, we are in this period where we are waiting for final improvements from the Indian side, but some German companies are really keen on waiting for some basically trainees from India. What we learned, the biggest problem is always language.
Yeah.
Because in order to operate in a German technological and vocational environment, these trainees have to be more or less fluent in German. It has to be B2 level. So that is something that really has to be ensured by, the state of Karnataka, and that's something that we discussed with them, and so on. And what we are currently preparing is, we are still moderating as a city with our partners from the Chamber of Commerce and so on, between all these various partners. And we hope that we will have some first success stories later this autumn. And we consider to visit our friends in Karnataka early next year in order to, further the discussions in Karnataka between the institutions involved. Because what we see is, it's a complementary situation. You have an abundance of young people that can be trained. We have a lack of young people. We need young, a talent in Germany. So therefore, if we establish a functioning infrastructure between regions or between cities, that can be very beneficial both to India but also to Germany.
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. So my one more thing, as you rightly mentioned, that language is one barrier. I mean, in terms of German language, and of course, if you have to work in Germany, and language proficiency has to be there. So any strategy, any idea you might be working upon, suppose in future, because India has, the kind of population and we have, and the kind of talented professional also we have. Right. So if at all more and more Indians have to be taken into that ecosystem, or they have to be absorbed in the ecosystem, so how the language barrier can be addressed?
I mean, first of all, people working in IT or for the large corporates in Germany, then language is usually not a barrier, because most companies have English as a company language. Henkel, for instance, English is a company language. So therefore, you can perfectly get.
I'm talking about manufacturing.
But if you're working for a smaller SME, not in a big, business center in Germany, but in a more remote area, then you really have to be functional in German, and that's of course something that. I mean, training nowadays, in the past, one always had to rely on teachers that were around. But I mean, now in a digital age with AI and so on, I mean, there will be loads of language training facilities that will make this specific problem easier to tackle than it was in the past. So I think this is a hindrance, but it's one that we can easily overcome.
Very good. Thank you. So, one more thing I wanted to know, as you rightly mentioned, about the Mittelstand, the mid-market organization. So, how the German mid-market organization, because now we are, in India, we are witnessing more attraction, more number of inquiries or attention from the mid-market organization from and across the globe. So, how do you see the German mid-market organizations, as you rightly mentioned, Mittelstand, they are looking at India, and how do you see the future going on and evolving on from here, particularly with respect to the mid-market organizations, corporations?
This is probably something that my colleagues from the Chamber of Commerce are more qualified to comment on than I am. But what I hear from them is that the number of companies that are interested in looking at India as an alternative to, for instance, things that had been doing in China for many years is significantly growing. So there are a lot of delegation visits that are being prepared by the Chamber of Commerce, by our colleagues from the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce. I think a lot of companies are following the route to India as a alternative for manufacturing or for R&D. So that's something that is a given. What I think that a lot of these companies find quite challenging is a question of infrastructure. The digital infrastructure usually is very good in India, but when it comes to roads and traffic and so on, there is some room for improvement. And I know that the Indian state is, of course, tackling it, but that's, of course, something that is really, really crucial. And it's the regulatory environment and dealing with bureaucracy, which is very different in India to how it is done in Germany. So therefore, it takes advisors and institutions like Chambers of Commerce, Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, and so on, who can really, really support and guide those companies.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this insight. I'm sure government of India and the concerned authorities would look into it, and we will also take it up. We will also share this feedback. It's quite a valid feedback, and it is quite relevant in contextual world, in today's world. So, as you rightly mentioned about the GCCs, an Indian ecosystem. Let me tell you, GCCs are the sunrise sector for India. Yes, thank you very much. So, GCCs are the sunrise sector for India. And as you know, the kind of contribution IT did in terms of, the facelift, giving a facelift to India and the Indian workforce. So the next generation, the next era is going to belong to global capability centers.
Absolutely.
Right. So since it is a sunrise sector, and we are anticipating, even during our last budget, our finance minister, she also raised an economic survey report also says that this is going to contribute somewhere around 3.5% of the GDP. This GCC itself will contribute to 3.5% of the GCC by say 2030, right? So it is going to be a huge sector for India. I'm sure government of India is working on it. They are also, you must be knowing, most of the Indian state, I can tell you, like Karnataka, since you are dealing with Karnataka, and many other Indian states, they already have GCC policies with them. So they are incentivizing, they are attracting, incentivizing, giving them all kind of support, whatever support, including the state of Uttar Pradesh, right? It's a northern state, you must be knowing, which is very close to our national capital, Delhi. So every state is, they have come out with GCC policies, and they are spreading, they are going all across the globe, they are promoting, and I'm sure they are also trying to create an ecosystem which can actually help the global corporation. I'm not only referring to the large corporation, I'm referring to the mid-sized, Mittelstand corporations, those who would be willing to come to India. So also some of the Indian corporations, those who are quite active like us, those who are quite active into the GCC ecosystem, they have also come out with a different kind of service model, right? Like I can tell you, one is, we call it COPO, company owned, partners operated. So where therein, none of the, therein you are, any global corporation is not required or expected to invest in capex, right? So it is a capex free model. So on a rental basis, basically you are running and you are controlling, and all those employees, they are exclusively working for you. So that is one of the great model which is getting quite a lot amount of attention from the global community, right from USA to Europe, even to the Middle East. So all these regions we are getting. So my question is that, suppose, the kind of interest India is generating, I'm sure if government is also projecting, and let me tell you, we are anticipating by 2030 at least 3,000, 3,500 rather, so 1,700 more global capability centers are going to be opened up by the various global corporations in India. Uh, so, any suggestion you would like to give us to the industry, to the Indian corporate, to the Indian government, how we can make it further better, and how we can make it more attractive in order to attract, particularly into the services sector. India has a place. We have been able to create a place for ourselves as far as services sector led by IT is concerned. So yes, over to you, Annette.
That is a very difficult question, because I think this is happening anyway, because it has to happen because of the general trends. They all lead to this kind of development. It's just a question of what you attract to which region in India and which companies you target. It will be a process of growth, and you will go through the typical phases one goes through. So initially one accepts all the projects. Later on one is a little bit more picky. And I think if I were in the position of somebody in trade and development in one of the regions in India, or in government, I would think of healthily spreading it all over the country. And I'm saying this very much as a representative of a city that is not the biggest city in Germany, because what is important from the point of view of India is to have various Silicon Valleys, not just one. Because from the German perspective, what makes Germany a very stable country and a very safe and secure country is the fact that the development across Germany is very similar. So if you're in Munich or in Düsseldorf or in Berlin, the quality of life differs a little bit, and there might be a little bit more of an AI strength in Munich, a bit stronger than in Düsseldorf, a bit more green tech in Düsseldorf. There are variations, but generally speaking, it is very even. And I think this is a core strength of Germany. And I think as you are on a crossroads of how India is going to develop, I think this is something that is very important, because that is leading to stability. And in the end, that is then causing a good ground for growth and further development. So that's something that is very important, specifically in periods of growth. But then, of course, Indians are so quick and so good at selling themselves and so good at managing processes and at managing clients. It will be a success anyway. So therefore, it will be a success. And because it will be a success, you have to manage the process so that it benefits India the most. I think that's the challenge, actually. Not question whether it's happening. The question is how it is, impacting on India.
Well said, Annette. I completely agree with you. Of course, we are going through a process of evolution. A shift. So that has to be managed well. And in this, in contextual economic scenario, many developments are taking place here and there. Many new things have come up. Post pandemic, if we see, many new dimensions have come to fore, and we have witnessed so many new dimensions, and the way businesses are changing, the way perceptions are building about a business, about how the businesses can be done. India also need to accordingly match up with that kind of change. And I'm sure the way most of the Indian states and the central government of India, they are they are ready, and they are also gearing up, and they have geared up, rather I would say, in order to take the maximum advantage of this moment. So, and we will not take much of your time. I will have 5-7 minutes more. Looking ahead, how do you foresee the evolution of the partnership between India and Germany in terms of talent exchange and skill development. That is one area because as far as our understanding goes, I mean, this is the area, talent and skill. This is an area where actually we can establish a great partnership because what you require and what we have in
Absolutely.
abundance, we can always exchange and build a relationship. Right, yes.
So I think the opportunities are huge, and I think both nations have some homework to do in order to make it a success. When I talk of Germany, I talk about immigration processes. That is not the easiest. It is been getting easier and better, and more flexible with regards to Indian talent, but there is of course room for maneuver. And when I look at the German consulates and embassies, of course we have to improve on how to administer visa. That is of course something that is really crucial from the German point of view. When I look at India, I always get the impression that there are loads of various initiatives competing with each other. And from the German perspective, it is difficult to choose the right partner for a project. And that is maybe making it a little difficult from the German point of view to really tap into the opportunities that are opening up. So if Germans can address the process, and if Indians can maybe streamline and professionalize the side of offering and preparing, I think there are huge opportunities. And even if both sides fail to do their homework, I'm still convinced that it's going to work out because there are a lot of small companies also dealing with these issues. And they are basically compensating for the failures on both sides, and they are, filling the gap with their services. It's just a little more difficult from the demand side in Germany than to choose the right partner. But there will be somebody providing the infrastructure and the services that are needed. But it could be, managed a little better. And then I think there would be even more success outlooks possible.
Great. Thank you. So today in the newspaper I read a statement by the President European Commission, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, that India and EU, they are expected to sign the FTA soon. I mean, probably that FTA is going to come
hopefully by the end of 2025. That was what we were all hoping for at the beginning of the year. Yes.
Right. So the kind of tariff turmoil we all are witnessing. You also must be agreeing to us that even Europe has been heavily, it has weighed heavily for the US also, and of course on India too. So how do you see this India EU FTA evolving in years to come, and what kind of impact it can have on the India EU, particularly India Germany business relationship?
It is usually setting free a lot of energy. I mean, we've had that with Japan, we've had that with Korea, countries like that. Once there's a free trade agreement in place, bilateral trade grows, delegations numbers visits numbers go high, and it's usually a momentum that is being provided. And I think it is really the right time to have this agreement signed, because what we are all having to do is to focus on growing the trade between our nations in order to become more resilient and less dependent on trading with areas of the world that are becoming more and more protectionistic and are less open to international trade. And I mean, very much the German experience is that international trade is benefiting us. Because at the end of the day, and the global technology centers, they are one of the examples. It's supporting, of course, we are giving some of our knowledge to India and some of our capacities, but at the end of the day, it's strengthening us. So we very much believe in open markets and in international trade. So I guess a free trade agreement will help us all very much.
Right, and it's a free world. I mean, everyone trade freely. I mean, that's how it should be, ideally. I mean, whosoever is better, they can always compete and they can always win. It is all about the competence rather than imposing certain things on a particular country. I hope things are going to get better. I mean, with time. I'm referring to the global, development. You can understand what I'm referring to. But we are also, as an organization, as an individual, we are also quite hopeful with India, EU, FTA. And I'm sure the kind of business relationship India has with many of the European Union countries, that is going to further get better. And Europe has certain compulsions, but not compulsion. You have certain challenges, and the kind of and India is always in a better position to fulfill and address those challenges, and that is where the synergy matters, right?
Definitely.
Right. So, thank you very much for being with us. One more thing I wanted to share with you. We are going to organize GCC summit, the global GCC summit in the month of November, on 21st of November in New Delhi it is scheduled. So, formally I would like to invite you, rather we will also share, you and your commission also, your office too. So, Office of Economic Development, we would like to invite to our global GCC summit. So, during this summit, we are mostly going to focus upon the Indian ecosystem and the global requirement and the kind of innovation-led R&D India is expected to deliver and how that can be delivered. Number one. Number two, we are also going to focus upon, during the discussion, the industry academia partnership, how the industry academia can partner, and maybe we would also love to align German universities or the corporation if they are also willing to. So we shall be expecting more number of academicians, thought leaders, industry leaders, even people from your consulates. Right. So we are expecting, and of course from the government too. So we have shared invite with them. So that event, Global GCC Summit, is scheduled on 21st of November 2025, after 2 months or so. So I wish and I sincerely request you to be a part of that event. And we shall be really happy if you can make it. Yeah, over to you.
I'm very honored by your invitation. I will come to Delhi, but unfortunately next year, not this year. This year for November, I'm already scheduled to participate in events that we have in Düsseldorf during this specific week, because this is the week of Medica. We talked about Medica earlier on, and we have a lot of high-ranking delegation visits, also from India actually, coming to Düsseldorf on that occasion. And therefore, I am unfortunately required back in Düsseldorf. Some of my colleagues will be in India, so we will discuss.
Yeah.
But right now, my next visit to India will be next January.
Yeah.
But I wish you most of success, and you can send us some information, and we can also share it with our partners, because we have also some partners on the ground in India we work with. And I think this exchange is important to talk from various perspectives on how we can benefit from the sunrise that is happening in India, and how we can cooperate. So thank you very much for having me here in this conversation, and wishing you best of luck for the conference.
Thank you. It's an absolute honor for us to be in talk with you. So thank you very much for this